The baby kicked. Kieran Rowe pressed his palm against the swell beneath his black shirt and tried to breathe through the nausea crawling up his throat. 28 weeks. 7 months of hiding under oversized button-downs and strategic camera angles during Zoom calls. 7 months of pretending his body wasn't doing something impossible. Rain hammered the glass walls of the executive office like fists demanding entry. Outside, New York looked expensive and violent, blurred neon bleeding across wet asphalt, headlights cutting through the dark like knives. Inside, the air tasted like leather, cold coffee, and the kind of silence that meant someone was about to lose everything. The door opened without warning. Kieran didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He knew that scent, warm cedar mixed with something sharper, something that used to mean safety before it meant abandonment. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Soren Cade walked in like he owned the building. He did now. Silver haircut sharp enough to draw blood, jaw set hard, Tom Ford suit fitted so precisely it looked like armor. A Rolex flashed when he braced both hands on the desk, leaning forward with the kind of control that only came from choking down rage. His eyes found Kieran's reflection in the glass, then dropped lower. Kieran's stomach tightened, not from the baby this time, from fear. "Sit," Soren said. His voice was low, rough, the kind of tone that didn't ask twice. Kieran stayed exactly where he was. If he sat down, Soren would see the way the fabric stretched across his belly. He'd see the truth Kieran had spent 7 months keeping buried. "You weren't supposed to be back," Kieran said, forcing his voice steady even though his pulse was slamming against his ribs. Soren's mouth twitched, not a smile, something that looked like it hurt. "I wasn't supposed to be CEO either, but your board wanted someone with a cleaner reputation after the scandal." The scandal. The word landed like a fist to Kieran's chest. 3 years ago, his name had been dragged through every gossip column in Manhattan. Thief, liar, Omega who slept his way into a corner office and sold secrets when the Alpha got bored. None of it had been true. All of it had stuck. And Soren had walked away without asking a single question. "If you're here to fire me, just do it," Kieran said. Soren's gaze flicked down again, brief, involuntary, like his eyes had betrayed him before his brain could stop them. He'd seen it. The room shifted, the air got heavier. Soren's hands tightened on the edge of the desk until his knuckles went white. "What is that?" Kieran's throat closed. The baby chose that exact moment to move, a slow roll beneath his ribs that felt like a reminder he couldn't ignore. "None of your business," Kieran said. Soren rounded the desk in 3 steps. He stopped close enough that Kieran could feel the heat coming off him, close enough that Kieran's body reacted in ways he hated, his breathing shallow, his scent spiking with something that smelled like distress and want tangled together. Soren didn't touch him, he just looked, like he was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't make sense. "How far along?" Soren asked, too calm, too controlled. Kieran laughed and it came out bitter. "Now you care about details." "Answer me." Kieran lifted his chin, his hands curled protectively over his stomach. 28 weeks. Soren went completely still. 7 months. The math clicked into place behind his eyes. Kieran watched it happen, the shock, the denial, the cold calculation that came after. Then Soren stepped back like Kieran had burned him. "Who's the father?" he asked. "That was the knife." Kieran's eyes strung. He blinked hard, refusing to let anything fall. "Does it matter?" "Answer me." Kieran had survived a lot. Public humiliation, whispered insults in boardrooms, HR investigations that treated him like a criminal, years of people saying Omega like it was something dirty. But this, Soren asking that question like Kieran had been replaced, cut deeper than all of it. Kieran took a breath, it shook on the way out. "You," he said. The word hung in the air like a gunshot. Soren blinked, once, twice, and for the first time since he'd walked through that door, the CEO mask cracked. Not into softness. Into disbelief. "That's impossible," Soren said. Kieran's laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. "Yeah, that's what I thought too, until the test came back positive, until the ultrasound showed a heartbeat, until my doctor told me everything was healthy and I had no idea how to tell the Alpha who threw me away like garbage." Soren's face shifted at the word healthy, relief trying to surface, strangled by guilt. Kieran didn't let him breathe. I didn't tell you because when I called 3 years ago, you didn't pick up. When I showed up at your building on 5th Avenue, your security handed me an NDA and told me to leave. You made it clear I was nothing. Soren's nostrils flared. You think I wanted? The door opened. There's no knock. A man walked in like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Brant Sallow, interim CFO, tailored coat draped over one arm, smile sharp as broken glass. He looked at Kieran's belly and didn't even try to hide his disgust. Ah, Brant said, voice dripping poison, so it's true. Soren's body shifted. It was subtle, a half-step that put him between Kieran and Brant without Soren seeming to move at all. Kieran felt it like a wall going up, solid and unmistakable. Brant's smile widened. He knew exactly what he was seeing. I didn't realize we were having a family reunion, Brant said. He dropped a slim folder onto the desk. Pages slid out like an accusation. Accounting flagged something interesting. Thought you'd want to see it before the board does. Soren didn't reach for the folder. He stared at Brant the way a predator stares at prey dumb enough to wander too close. Get out, Soren said. Brant laughed, light, easy, the kind of sound that meant he wasn't afraid. I'm trying to protect this company from another scandal. Unless you'd rather I let the board find out on their own that your ex-employee, sorry ex-lover, has been stealing from us while carrying, what did you say, 28 weeks? Kieran's chest went tight. I didn't take anything. Brant tilted his head like Kieran was a child trying to lie his way out of trouble. Then explain the wire transfers. $250,000 moved through a shell account in Maryland. Same account tied to a foundation that's been paying for someone's prenatal care. Kieran's vision blurred at the edges. He didn't understand half of what Brant just said, but he understood the shape of it. Thief again. This time with a baby to make it worse. Soren's voice dropped into something that didn't sound like a CEO anymore. It sounded older, colder, dangerous. You're weaponizing a pregnancy. I'm doing my job, Brant said smoothly, which is more than I can say for you right now. He glanced at Kieran with something that looked like pity but smelled like cruelty. Hope the kid's worth it. He turned to leave. Then stopped. Oh, and Kieran, Brant said without looking back. There's a board meeting tomorrow at 9. I'd suggest you bring a lawyer. The door clicked shut. Silence flooded back in. Kieran's hands were shaking. He pressed them harder against his belly, trying to hold something together that felt like it was splitting apart. Then pain cut across his abdomen, sharp, sudden, frightening. Kieran gasped and bent forward. Soren moved without thinking. His hands caught Kieran's shoulders, lowering him into the nearest chair with a gentleness that didn't match the fury still burning in his eyes. Don't, Kieran tried to say, but the cramp fled again and stole his breath. Soren's voice went rough. Breathe, look at me. Kieran tried, his vision swam. Soren pulled out his phone and made a call, clipped, precise, the kind of tone that made people move fast. Medical assistance, top floor, now. When Kieran finally got enough air to speak, it came out in a whisper. You didn't believe me back then. Soren's jaw tightened because I was set up. Kieran froze. What? Soren looked at him, and for the first time, Kieran saw something behind the control. Regret. 3 years ago, Soren said slowly, like the words tasted like blood, Brant showed me security footage. You meeting someone in a parking garage in Connecticut, an exchange, a bag. He told me it was proof you were selling information to our competitors. Kieran's breath hitched. That never happened. I know, Soren said, his voice cracked on the edge of it. Now I know. Kieran stared at him, stunned. Soren kept going, each word heavy. When I took over as CEO last week, I audited everything myself. Brant falsified the footage. He moved money through dummy accounts, then planted your credentials. He needed someone to blame, and you were. He stopped. Kieran finished it for him, voice hollow. Easy. Soren flinched like Kieran had slapped him. No, you were the one person who could have destroyed me, because I cared, and I let my pride do what Brant couldn't. Kieran's throat burned, and the foundation, the prenatal bills. Something shifted in Soren's expression, something gentler. That's mine, he admitted quietly. A private fund I run, helps people disappear when they need safety. I recognized your name on a medical report that crossed my desk 2 months ago. I knew you wouldn't ask for help. Kieran's voice cracked. So you watched me. Soren didn't lie, I protected you. Kieran shook his head, tears finally breaking free. Protection isn't love. Soren's eyes flashed, hurt, agreement, something that looked like surrender. You're right, he said. Love would have been believing you. The medic arrived. Professional, quick, Kieran's vitals stabilized. The cramping eased into a dull ache that left him exhausted and hollow. When they were alone again, Soren placed something on the desk. A small black box. Kieran recognized the color, Tiffany blue peeking through the edges. I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight, Soren said, voice unsteady. I'm asking you to let me fix what I broke. Kieran stared at the box, then at Soren. How? Kieran whispered. Soren's gaze turned sharp again, not at Kieran, at the threat. By ending Brandt, he said, legally, completely. The board meeting started at 9. Kieran walked in wearing a black Armani blazer he'd bought 3 sizes too big, and a pair of trousers with an elastic waistband hidden under the jacket. He looked composed. He felt like he was drowning. 20 people sat around a glass table that reflected the storm still battering the windows. Brandt sat at the far end, fingers steepled, smiling like he'd already won. Soren sat at the head. He didn't look at Kieran when Kieran took the only empty chair, directly across from Brandt. The board chairman cleared his throat. Older man, expensive watch, the kind of voice that sounded like money. We are here to address allegations of financial misconduct involving Kieran Rowe and several unauthorized transactions tied to company accounts. Kieran's hands curled in his lap, hidden under the table. Brandt leaned forward. I'll keep this simple. Over the past 6 months, approximately $250,000 has been moved through a shell corporation in Maryland. That shell corp has one primary expense, prenatal medical care billed to a private clinic in New Jersey. He slid a stack of documents across the table. Receipts, bank statements, timestamps. The transfers, Brandt continued, were authorized using Kieran's employee credentials. The same credentials he used when he worked in our acquisitions department 3 years ago, before his last scandal. Someone at the table inhaled sharply. Kieran felt the room shift, suspicion hardening into certainty. Brandt wasn't done. Now I'm not saying Kieran stole the money to fund his. He paused, gaze dropping to Kieran's midsection with exaggerated sympathy. Personal situation, but the evidence speaks for itself. Kieran's throat tightened. I didn't authorize anything. Then how do you explain this? Brandt pulled out another document, a luxury purchase receipt, Gucci, Hermes, Dior, dates spanning the last 4 months, all tied to a credit card Kieran had never seen before. These were purchased using a card linked to the same Maryland account, Brandt said, unless you're telling us someone stole your identity and also happens to be pregnant. Laughter rippled through the room, quiet, uncomfortable. Kieran's chest went cold. He looked at Soren. Soren's expression was unreadable, but his hands were flat on the table, pressed down hard like he was holding himself in place. The chairman spoke again. Mr. Rowe, do you have anything to say in your defense? Kieran opened his mouth. Then the pain hit. Sharp, low, twisting through his abdomen like a fist clenching around something vital. Kieran bit down on his lip, tasting copper, trying to breathe through it without making a sound. Brandt's smile widened. Are you all right, Kieran? You look stressed. Kieran forced words out. I didn't take anything. Then prove it, Brandt said lightly. The room watched. Kieran felt the baby move, restless, agitated, like it could sense the danger pressing in from all sides. Soren's voice cut through the silence like a blade. This meeting is over. The chairman blinked. Excuse me. Soren stood, slow, controlled, every inch of him radiating authority. I'm ordering an external audit, independent investigators, federal oversight if necessary. No one in this room touches the evidence until then. Brandt's smile slipped, just for a second. That's not protocol. I don't care, Soren said. His gaze swept the table, landing on each board member with the kind of weight that made people remember who actually held power. If anyone here has a problem with transparency, you're welcome to resign. No one moved. Soren looked at Kieran. Come with me. Kieran wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight and prove he wasn't weak. But the pain was getting worse. He stood carefully, keeping one hand braced against the table for balance. Brant's voice followed them to the door. Running won't change the facts, Soren. He's guilty, and everyone here knows it. Soren didn't stop walking. But his hand, just for a moment, brushed against the small of Kieran's back. Getting protective. The kind of touch that used to mean forever. They made it to the elevator before Kieran's knees buckled. Soren caught him, lowering them both to the floor as the doors slid shut, and the world narrowed to just the two of them, and the pain clawing through Kieran's body. Stay with me, Soren said, voice rough and desperate. Just stay with me. Kieran tried. But the last thing he saw before everything went dark was Brant's face through the closing elevator doors. Smiling, Kieran woke up to white walls and the smell of antiseptic. Hospital. His hand went immediately to his stomach, still there, still round, still moving with the faint flutter that meant the baby was okay. Relief hit so hard it felt like drowning. Easy, Soren's voice, close, rough like he hadn't slept. Kieran turned his head. Soren sat in a chair pulled up next to the bed, elbows on his knees, silver hair falling forward like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. He looked exhausted, wrecked. How long? Kieran asked. His throat felt like sandpaper. 6 hours, Soren said. They stabilized you. The baby's fine. But the doctor said if your stress levels don't come down, you're at risk for preterm labor. Kieran closed his eyes. 28 weeks. Too early, way too early. I need to go back, Kieran said. No. Kieran's eyes snapped open. They think I'm guilty if I don't. They think wrong, Soren interrupted. His voice was hard, final, and I'm not letting you walk back into that room and let Brant destroy you again. He's already destroying me, Kieran said, his voice cracked. He has evidence, Soren, receipts, transfers, my credentials. Even if it's fake, how do I prove that? Soren leaned forward, because I'm going to find out who helped him. Kieran stared. What? Brant didn't do this alone, Soren said. The footage he showed me 3 years ago, the one that made me leave you, it was too clean, too perfect. Someone with access to our security systems helped him build it. Someone still inside the company. Kieran's pulse kicked up. You think there's a second person? I know there is, Soren said, and I'm going to burn them both. The door opened. A doctor stepped in, middle-aged woman, kind eyes, clipboard in hand. She smiled at Kieran. Good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Tired, Kieran admitted. That's normal, she said gently. She checked the monitor beside the bed, made a note. Your vitals are stable, but I need you to understand something. Stress is dangerous right now. Your body is working hard to support that baby. If you keep pushing, your body will make a choice, and it might not be the one you want. Kieran's stomach twisted. The doctor's gaze softened. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying it because you deserve to know. Rest, let people help you. And if something feels wrong, cramping, bleeding, anything, you call immediately. She left. The room went quiet again. Kieran looked at Soren. I can't just hide. I'm not asking you to hide, Soren said. I'm asking you to let me handle Brant while you take care of our child. Our child? The words hit Kieran harder than he expected. Soren saw it, his expression shifted, vulnerable, raw. I know I don't deserve to say that, Soren said quietly. I know I gave up the right to be part of this when I walked away, but I'm asking anyway. Kieran's throat burned. Why now? Why do you suddenly care? Soren's jaw worked for a long moment. He didn't answer. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old, creased like it had been opened and refolded 100 times. He handed it to Kieran. Kieran unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a sonogram. 8 weeks, dated 3 years ago. Kieran's breath stopped. You tried to tell me, Soren said, voice breaking. You came to my office, you called, you left messages, and I ignored all of it because I believed Brant's lie. Kieran stared at the image, a tiny shape, barely recognizable as human. I lost that one, Kieran whispered. Soren's face crumpled. I know. You knew? I found the hospital records 2 weeks ago, Soren said. When I started digging into Brant's files, I saw the admission date, the discharge notes, miscarriage at 10 weeks. Tears slid down Kieran's face, hot and unstoppable. "I'm sorry," Soren said, and his voice shattered on it. "I'm so sorry." Kieran couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Soren started to step back, giving Kieran space. But Kieran reached out and caught his wrist. Soren froze. Kieran pulled Soren's hand to his belly, pressed it there, flat against the swell. The baby kicked. Strong, insistent. Soren's breath caught, his eyes filled. "Don't leave again," Kieran said. "I can't do this twice." Soren's other hand came up, cradling Kieran's face. "I won't." The door burst open. A nurse rushed in, face pale. "So there's someone here demanding to see you." Security tried to stop him, but Brandt walked in behind her like he owned the hospital. He looked at Kieran in the bed, at Soren's hand still pressed against Kieran's stomach. And he smiled. "Well," Brandt said, "isn't this touching?" Soren moved in front of the bed before Kieran could blink. Fast, instinctive, the kind of movement that came from somewhere deeper than thought. Brandt raised both hands in mock surrender. "Relax, I'm not here to cause trouble." "Then leave," Soren said. His voice was low, controlled, but Kieran heard the threat underneath. Brandt ignored him. His gaze slid past Soren to Kieran. "I wanted to make sure you were all right. Heard you collapse during the meeting. That must have been scary." Kieran's skin crawled. "Get out." "I also wanted to give you a heads up," Brandt continued, pulling a phone from his pocket. He tapped the screen, then turned it so they could see. A news article. The headline made Kieran's stomach drop. "Executive accused of embezzlement collapses during board meeting. Pregnancy scandal, ROCK's tech firm." Underneath was a photo, grainy but clear enough. Kieran leaving the boardroom, Soren's hand on his back. "Goes live in 3 hours," Brandt said cheerfully. "Unless, of course, you'd like to make a statement first, clear things up." Kieran couldn't breathe. Soren's hands curled into fists. "You leaked this." "I reported facts," Brandt said. "The board has a right to know when someone in a senior position is under investigation. The public has a right to transparency." "The public," Soren said quietly, "doesn't have a right to weaponize someone's medical emergency." Brandt shrugged. "Then maybe Kieran shouldn't have stolen company funds." "I didn't," Kieran started, but his voice broke. Brandt's smile sharpened. "Prove it. Show me one piece of evidence that clears your name, just one." Kieran's mind raced. Emails, timestamps, alibi records from New Jersey, anything. But every time he tried to pull his own access logs, the system had locked him out. It claimed it was a routine security update. So now he knew why. Brandt had made sure Kieran couldn't defend himself. "I have alibis," Kieran said. "I was in New Jersey on half those dates. I have receipts, witnesses." Brandt tilted his head. "Do you? Because I have surveillance footage showing your car in Manhattan on 3 of those nights. Timestamps match the wire transfers perfectly." Kieran's chest went tight. "That's not possible, I wasn't." "Maybe you forgot," Brandt said lightly. "Pregnancy brain is a real thing, right?" Soren took a step forward. Brandt didn't move, but his smile faltered, just slightly. "You're done," Soren said, each word sharp as broken glass. Brandt recovered fast. "I'm doing my job. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the board." He turned to leave. Then paused at the door. "Oh, and Soren," Brandt said without looking back, "you might want to check your own accounts. Turns out the foundation paying Kieran's medical bills. It's registered under your name. Makes you look a little compromised." He left. The door swung shut. Silence crashed down. Kieran stared at Soren. "Is that true?" Soren's jaw tightened. "Yes." "So now they'll think we planned this together," Kieran said. His voice sounded hollow, distant. "They'll think I seduced you, got pregnant on purpose, and you covered for me because—" "Because I love you," Soren interrupted. Kieran's breath stopped. Soren's eyes were raw, desperate. "That's what they'll say, and I don't care, let them." "You should care," Kieran said. "This will destroy your reputation, your company, everything you've built." "I don't care," Soren repeated, louder this time. Kieran shook his head, tears burning. "I can't let you do that." Soren crossed the room in 2 strides. He cupped Kieran's face in both hands, tilting Kieran's head up until their eyes locked. 3 years ago, I chose my reputation over you, Soren said. I chose pride over truth. I let someone I loved believe I didn't want them, and it cost us everything. His thumb brushed away a tear from Kieran's cheek. I'm not making that mistake again, Soren said. I don't care what it costs me, I'm choosing you. Kieran's chest ached. What if I'm not worth it? Soren's expression cracked. You've always been worth it. Kieran wanted to believe him. But the article was going live in 3 hours. And Brandt had made sure there was no way out. Soren's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. His face went pale. What? Kieran asked. Soren showed him the message. Unknown number. You still don't know the real reason he left you the first time. Want to find out? Meet me, alone. An address in Connecticut followed. Kieran's blood went cold. It's a trap. I know, Soren said. Then don't go. Soren looked at him. If there's any chance this person has proof that clears you. It's not worth your life, Kieran said. Soren's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You are. He leaned down, kissed Kieran's forehead, and left before Kieran could stop him. Kieran sat alone in the hospital bed, hand pressed against his belly, staring at the door Soren had just walked through. The baby kicked. Once, twice, like it knew something terrible was coming. The Connecticut address led to a warehouse 20 minutes outside the city. Soren pulled up in his black Tesla, headlights cutting through fog that clung to the empty parking lot like it was trying to hide something. The building looked abandoned, rusted metal siding, broken windows, the kind of place people went when they wanted to disappear. He checked his phone, no signal. Of course not. Soren got out of the car. His hand went instinctively to his jacket pocket, fingers brushing the cold metal of something he rarely carried, but never forgot how to use. The warehouse door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled like damp concrete and old oil. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, swinging slightly like someone had just walked past. You came alone, a voice said from the shadows. Soren didn't flinch. Show yourself. A figure stepped into the light. Not Brandt. Someone older, a woman. Designer coat, expensive heels that clicked against the concrete floor, silver hair pulled back in a style that screamed old money and older secrets. Soren's blood went cold. Hello, Soren, she said. He knew that voice, hadn't heard it in 3 years, but some sounds you don't forget. Mrs. Langford, Soren said carefully. She smiled, it didn't reach her eyes. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. Soren's mind raced. Vivienne Langford, former board member, former mentor, the woman who'd recommended Soren for his first executive position before she'd quietly retired to an estate in California. Or so everyone thought. You sent the message, Soren said. I did, Vivienne confirmed. She pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, then turned it toward him. I thought you deserved to know the truth before Brandt buries it completely. The screen showed a video. Security footage, time-stamped 3 years ago. Soren's office, late at night. And there, walking in through the side entrance, was Kieran. Soren's chest tightened. The video showed Kieran sitting at Soren's desk, accessing the computer, files opening, data transferring to a USB drive. Exactly what Brandt had claimed. Exactly what had made Soren walk away. This is fake, Soren said. His voice sounded distant, mechanical. Is it? Vivienne asked. She swiped to another file. Because the metadata says otherwise. The timestamps are accurate. The security logs match. Even the building access records confirm Kieran was there. Soren stared at the screen. Why are you showing me this? Vivienne's smile sharpened. Because I made it. The words landed like a punch. Soren looked up. What? I created the footage, Vivienne said calmly. I hired the tech team. I paid Brandt to deliver it to you at exactly the right moment, when you were already doubting Kieran, because of the board's whispers about Omegas in leadership positions. Soren's hands curled into fists. Why? Vivienne tilted her head. Because you were getting too comfortable, too soft. You were talking about stepping back, letting Kieran take a bigger role, maybe even proposing. That wasn't acceptable. To who? Soren demanded. To the people who actually control this company, Vivienne said. The investors who don't want an Omega anywhere near decision-making power. The board members who see pregnancy as a liability. The old guard who believe alphas belong at the top and everyone else belongs somewhere grateful and quiet. Soren's jaw tightened, so you destroyed him. I removed a distraction, Vivienne corrected. And it worked. You focused. You climbed. You became CEO, exactly what we needed. We, Soren repeated. His voice was ice. Vivienne's smile widened. Did you really think Brandt was working alone? He's useful, but he's not smart enough to pull off something this layered. He needed guidance. I provided it. Soren took a step closer. And the shell account in Maryland, the prenatal payments. Also me, Vivienne said. I knew you'd started watching Kieran. I knew you'd recognize his name on medical records if they crossed your desk. So I made sure they did. I wanted you distracted, guilty, focused on protecting him instead of investigating too closely. Soren's vision blurred at the edges. You manipulated everything. I protected your career, Vivienne said, and I'm still protecting it. That article Brandt leaked. It'll run in 2 hours. Kieran will be ruined. You'll be forced to distance yourself publicly, and the board will have no choice but to demand his resignation. Soren's voice dropped to something lethal. Unless. Vivienne pulled a folder from her coat. Unless you sign this. She handed it to him. Soren opened it. Inside was a non-disclosure agreement, a severance package for Kieran, a gag order preventing him from ever speaking about the company, Soren, or the pregnancy publicly. And a clause that made Soren's stomach turn. Full custody of the child to Soren. Kieran would have no parental rights. You're insane, Soren said. I'm practical, Vivienne replied. Sign it, and Kieran walks away with enough money to disappear quietly. The article gets pulled. The scandal dies. You keep your position. And if I don't? Vivienne's expression hardened. Then I release the rest of the footage. The parts showing Kieran meeting with your competitors. The wire transfers under his name. The luxury purchases he can't explain. I'll make sure every news outlet in the country knows he used his pregnancy to manipulate you. Soren's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A text from an unknown number. A photo. Kieran in the hospital bed, asleep, vulnerable. The message underneath read, he's not safe, you have 1 hour. Soren's blood turned to ice. That's not a threat, Vivienne said softly. It's a reminder. People like Kieran don't survive in our world, but you can save him. Sign the contract, let him go. Soren looked at the folder in his hands. Then at Vivienne. Then at the photo of Kieran on his phone. And he made a choice. Soren didn't sign. He drove back to the hospital with the unsigned contract burning a hole in his jacket pocket and Vivienne's voice still echoing in his head. Let him go. When he walked into Kieran's room, Kieran was awake, sitting up, pale but steady. You're back, Kieran said, relief and fear mixing in his voice. Soren crossed the room and pulled a chair close to the bed. We need to talk. Kieran's hands went to his belly, protective, instinctive. What happened? Vivienne Langford, Soren said. Kieran blinked, the board member who retired. She didn't retire, Soren said. She's been controlling everything from the start. The footage, the shell accounts, Brandt, all of it. Kieran's face went white. Why? Because she didn't want you anywhere near me, Soren said. His voice cracked on the edges. Because she thinks Omegas are liabilities. Because she's part of a network of people who have spent decades keeping power exactly where they think it belongs. Kieran stared at him, and you found this out how? Soren pulled out his phone, showed Kieran the video Vivienne had played, the fake footage, the timestamps, the metadata. Kieran watched in silence. When it ended, Kieran's voice was barely a whisper. That's not real. I know, Soren said. But it looks real. I know. Kieran's hands shook. How do we fight that? Soren hesitated, then he pulled out the contract. Kieran read it, every word, every clause. When he got to the custody section, his breath stopped. She wants you to take the baby, Kieran said, his voice hollow. She wants me to erase you, Soren corrected. Make it look like you were never part of this, like you were just a mistake I fixed. Kieran looked up, tears streaming down his face. Maybe you should. No, Soren said immediately. Soren, if you don't sign this, she'll destroy both of us, Kieran said. The article, the footage, the accusations, I'll lose everything, you'll lose your company, and our baby, his voice broke, our baby will grow up knowing their parents lost everything because they couldn't let go. Soren's throat tightened. I'm not letting you go. You have to, Kieran said, it's the only way. Soren shook his head. There's another way. What way? Kieran demanded. What could possibly? I testify, Soren said. Kieran froze. What? I go public, Soren said. I tell the truth, all of it, the fake footage, Vivienne's network, the shell accounts, Brandt's involvement. I burn it all down. That'll destroy you, Kieran said. Maybe, Soren admitted, but it'll clear your name. Kieran's face crumpled. I don't want you to sacrifice yourself for me. Soren reached out, cupped Kieran's face in both hands. 3 years ago, I chose wrong. I let someone convince me you were the enemy. I walked away when I should have fought. I won't make that mistake again. Kieran's tears fell faster. What if it doesn't work? What if you lose everything and I still end up guilty? Then we lose together, Soren said, but at least we'll know we didn't give up. Kieran closed his eyes. I'm scared. Me too, Soren whispered. They sat like that for a long moment, foreheads pressed together, breathing each other in. Then Kieran's phone buzzed. He picked it up. An email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You deserved better than him." Kieran opened it. Inside was a single attachment. A photo. Soren sitting across from Vivienne in the warehouse, the contract visible on the table between them. The timestamp showed it was taken 20 minutes ago. The message underneath was short. He went to her first, not to you. He'll always choose power over you. Save yourself. Kieran's hands trembled. Soren saw the screen. His face went pale. Kieran, that's not. You went to see her before you came back here, Kieran said, his voice flat. Yes, but you didn't tell me you were going. Because I didn't want you to worry. Or because you were considering it, Kieran interrupted. His eyes were red, wounded. Were you thinking about signing? Soren's silence was answer enough. Kieran's face crumpled. Get out. Kieran. Get out, Kieran shouted. His voice cracked, broke. I can't do this. I can't keep wondering if you're going to choose me or choose the easier option. I can't keep being the problem you have to solve. Soren's chest felt like it was caving in. You're not a problem. Then why does it always feel like I am? Kieran whispered. Soren had no answer. Kieran turned away. Leave, please. Soren stood, every instinct screaming at him to stay, to fight, to fix this. But Kieran's shoulders were shaking. His hands were pressed against his belly like he was trying to hold himself together. And Soren realized that sometimes love meant giving someone space, even when it felt like dying. He walked to the door. Paused. I love you, Soren said. That's the one thing I've never doubted. Kieran didn't respond. Soren left. The door clicked shut behind him. And Kieran sat alone in the hospital bed, staring at the photo on his phone, wondering if he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. Or the smartest one. 48 hours later, Soren stood in front of a federal courthouse in Manhattan. Reporters swarmed the steps like locusts, cameras flashing, microphones shoved in his face. Questions shouted over each other until they blurred into noise. Soren ignored all of it. He walked through the doors with his lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named India Reeves who'd built her career destroying corrupt executives, and headed straight to the hearing room. Inside, the air was cold, clinical, the kind of space designed to strip away emotion and leave only facts. Vivienne Langford sat at the defense table, perfectly composed, navy suit, pearl earrings, the picture of respectability. Brandt sat beside her, less composed, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Soren took his seat at the opposite table. The judge entered, an older black woman with grey locks and eyes that had seen every lie the legal system had to offer. This is a preliminary hearing regarding allegations of corporate fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy, the judge said. Her voice was measured, firm. Mr. Cade, you're here as a witness. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, Soren said. Proceed. India stood. Your Honor, we'd like to submit evidence showing a coordinated effort by Mrs. Vivienne Langford and Mr. Brant Sallow to falsify records, frame an innocent employee, and manipulate corporate funds for personal gain. She pulled out a folder. Inside were documents Soren had spent 2 sleepless nights compiling. Bank records showing Vivienne's offshore accounts funding the Shell Corporation in Maryland. Emails between Vivienne and Brant discussing how to remove the Omega problem. Metadata analysis proving the security footage had been digitally altered. Witness statements from a tech contractor Soren had tracked down in New Jersey, who admitted Vivienne paid him $50,000 to create the fake video. India laid it out piece by piece, clinical, devastating. Vivienne's lawyer objected at every turn, but the evidence was airtight. When it was Soren's turn to testify, he stood and faced the room. 3 years ago, Soren began, I was shown footage that convinced me someone I loved had betrayed me. I believed it because I wanted to, because it was easier than admitting I was afraid. He looked directly at Vivienne. I was afraid of what it would mean to choose love over power. I was afraid of what people like you would say if I put an Omega in a position of leadership. I was afraid of being seen as weak. Vivienne's expression didn't change. Soren continued, so I walked away. I let Kieran Rowe take the blame for something he didn't do. I let him lose his reputation, his career, his trust in me, and when he came to me pregnant and alone, I questioned him instead of protecting him. His voice cracked. I failed him, but I won't fail him again. He pulled out the contract Vivienne had given him in the warehouse. This is a document Mrs. Langford presented to me 2 days ago. She wanted me to sign away Kieran's parental rights, to erase him from my life and from our child's life, to make him disappear. He tore it in half. I'm not signing, I'm not erasing him, and I'm not letting you get away with this. The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Langford, do you have a response? Vivienne stood, calm, controlled. Mr. Cade is emotionally compromised, she said smoothly. He's willing to destroy his own credibility to protect someone who has repeatedly demonstrated poor judgment. I sympathize with his position, but the evidence speaks for itself. Which evidence? The judge asked. The fabricated footage, the falsified bank records, or the Shell Corporation you funded? Vivienne's composure slipped, just for a second. I acted in the company's best interest, she said. By framing an innocent employee, the judge asked. By protecting the company from a liability, Vivienne corrected. The judge's expression hardened. A liability, you mean a pregnant Omega? Vivienne didn't answer. The judge looked at the prosecutor. Do you have enough to proceed with charges? The prosecutor nodded. More than enough, Your Honor. Then we'll move forward with a grand jury, the judge said. She looked at Vivienne. You're free to go for now, but don't leave the state. Vivienne's lawyer whispered something urgent in her ear. Brant looked like he was going to be sick. Soren walked out of the courthouse with India at his side. The reporters descended again. Mr. Cade, is it true you're testifying against your former mentor? Mr. Cade, are you still in a relationship with Kieran Rowe? Mr. Cade, do you regret your actions 3 years ago? Soren stopped, turned to face the cameras. Yes, he said, I regret every moment I didn't believe him, every moment I chose pride over truth, every moment I let fear make my decisions. He looked directly into the nearest camera. Kieran, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, and I'm not done fighting. He walked away before anyone could ask another question. India caught up with him at the car. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the dumbest. Probably both, Soren admitted. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the clinic in New Jersey, now. Soren's pulse spiked. He showed India the message. She frowned. It could be a trap. I know, Soren said. But he got in the car anyway. Because if there was even a chance it was Kieran. He had to go. The clinic was a small building tucked between a deli and a laundromat in a quiet part of Newark. Soren walked in through the front entrance. The receptionist looked up, startled. "I'm here to see Kieran Rowe," Soren said. She hesitated, then nodded toward the hallway, room 3. Soren's heart hammered as he walked down the corridor. He stopped outside the door marked with a small metal number 3. Knocked once. "Come in," Kieran's voice said. Soren pushed the door open. Kieran sat on the exam table, hands folded over his belly. He looked exhausted, thinner than he should be, but his eyes were clear. "You came," Kieran said. "You asked," Soren replied. Kieran's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I saw the courthouse footage. You tore up the contract." "I wasn't going to sign it," Soren said. "I know," Kieran said quietly. "I knew the moment I sent you away, but I needed to see if you'd choose me without me begging you to." Soren stepped closer. "I'll always choose you, even when you don't ask." Kieran's eyes filled. "I'm sorry I doubted you." "You had every right to," Soren said. Kieran shook his head. "No, I let fear make my decisions too. I saw that photo and I assumed the worst because it was easier than trusting you." He slid off the exam table, stood face to face with Soren. "I don't want easy," Kieran said. "I want real, even when it's hard, even when it's scary." Soren's throat tightened. "Me too." The door opened. The doctor walked in, same kind-eyed woman from the hospital. She smiled when she saw them both. "Good," she said. "You're both here. I have results from the stress test we ran yesterday." Kieran's hand found Soren's, squeezed tight. The doctor pulled up a chart on her tablet. "The good news is the baby is healthy, strong heartbeat, normal growth, no signs of distress." Relief flooded Soren's chest. "The bad news," the doctor continued, "is Kieran's blood pressure is still elevated. If it doesn't come down in the next 2 weeks, we'll need to consider early delivery." Kieran's breath hitched. "How early?" 32 weeks, the doctor said gently. "It's not ideal, but it's viable. The baby would need NICU support, but the survival rate is very high." Kieran nodded, his hand tightened around Soren's. "What do we need to do?" Soren asked. The doctor looked at both of them. "Rest, no stress, no drama, and if possible, surround yourself with people who make you feel safe." She left them alone. Kieran looked at Soren. "I don't know how to do that. Rest, I mean. Not when Vivienne is still out there. Not when the article could still run. Not when." "The article got pulled," Soren interrupted. Kieran blinked. "What?" "India filed an injunction this morning. The court blocked it pending the outcome of the criminal case. It won't run." Kieran's legs went weak. Soren caught him, getting him back to the exam table. "And Vivienne?" Kieran asked. "Arrested an hour ago," Soren said. "She and Brandt both. Federal charges, conspiracy, fraud, identity theft. They're not getting out anytime soon." Kieran stared at him. "It's over." "The legal part is," Soren said. "The rest." He pulled something from his pocket. The small black Tiffany box. He opened it. Inside was the ring, simple, elegant, a promise that didn't need words. "The rest," Soren continued, "starts now, if you'll let me." Kieran looked at the ring, then at Soren. "I'm not asking you to forget what I did," Soren said. "I'm asking you to let me spend the rest of my life proving I won't do it again." Kieran's tears fell freely now. "That's a long time." "I'm counting on it," Soren said. Kieran reached out, took the ring. Slid it onto his own finger, because his hands were shaking too much for Soren to do it. It fit perfectly. "Yes," Kieran whispered. Soren pulled him close, kissed him like they had all the time in the world. And for the first time in 3 years, it felt like maybe they did. But as they left the clinic together, Soren's phone buzzed one last time. A voicemail from a blocked number. He almost didn't listen to it. But something made him press play. Vivienne's voice filled the speaker. "You think you've won," she said, "but you still don't know the real reason I needed him gone." Soren's blood went cold. "It wasn't about the company," Vivienne continued. "It was about the baby, your baby, because 3 years ago when Kieran lost the first one." She paused. That wasn't an accident. The voicemail ended. Soren stopped walking. Kieran looked at him. What's wrong? Soren's hands were shaking. We need to go, he said, now. They made it to the hospital in 15 minutes. Kieran was admitted immediately. The doctor ran every test available, monitored the baby's heartbeat, checked Kieran's vitals, scanned for abnormalities. Everything came back normal. But Soren couldn't shake Vivienne's words. That wasn't an accident. India arrived an hour later with a file folder thick enough to be a weapon. I pulled Vivienne's phone records, India said. She spread documents across the table in Kieran's hospital room. 3 years ago, the week Kieran miscarried, Vivienne made 17 calls to a private medical consultant in Boston. Soren's jaw tightened. What kind of consultant? The kind that specializes in hormone manipulation, India said. Specifically, medications that can induce miscarriage without leaving obvious traces. Kieran's face went white. She killed my baby. India's expression was grim. I can't prove it, not yet, but the timeline matches. And I found a payment, $50,000, wired to an offshore account the same week. Soren's vision blurred. She murdered our child to keep us apart. And she would have done it again, India said quietly. She pulled out another document. This is a prescription request submitted under a fake name to Kieran's current clinic 2 weeks ago. Same medication, same dose. Kieran's hands went to his belly. She tried to. The clinic flagged it as suspicious and denied the request, India said quickly. The baby was never in danger, but she tried. Soren couldn't breathe. India continued. I'm submitting all of this to the prosecutor. It's enough for additional charges. Attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder. She's not walking away from this. Kieran was shaking. Soren pulled him close, wrapping both arms around him like he could physically shield him from the truth. I'm sorry, Soren whispered. I'm so sorry. Kieran's tears soaked into Soren's shirt. It wasn't your fault. I should have protected you, Soren said, both times. You're protecting me now, Kieran said. That's what matters. They stayed like that until Kieran's breathing evened out, until the shaking stopped. India left to file the new evidence. The doctor came in an hour later with better news. Your blood pressure is coming down, she said. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. If this trend continues, we might be able to avoid early delivery. Kieran nodded, relief and exhaustion mixing on his face. The weeks that followed were strange. Vivienne and Brandt were formally charged. The trial date was set for 6 months out. The media coverage was relentless, but Soren and Kieran stayed out of it. Soren stepped down as CEO. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. He handed the position to someone who deserved it, a brilliant executive named Amara Chen who'd been passed over for promotions too many times because the board didn't think a woman could handle the pressure. Soren took a position as advisor, less stress, more time. Time for Kieran. Time for the baby. Time to build something that didn't require sacrificing the people he loved. Kieran moved into Soren's penthouse in Manhattan. They spent mornings drinking coffee and watching the sunrise over the city. They spent evenings assembling a crib that came with instructions neither of them could understand. They fought sometimes, about small things, about big things, about the fear that still lived in the space between them. But they didn't run. They stayed. At 37 weeks, Kieran went into labor. It was 3 in the morning, rain hammering the windows just like the night this all started. Soren drove them to the hospital with his hands steady on the wheel, and his heart racing so fast he thought it might break. The delivery was long, painful. Kieran screamed and cursed and threatened to never forgive Soren for getting him pregnant. Soren held his hand through all of it. And when the baby finally came, a boy with dark hair and lungs that worked perfectly, Kieran cried so hard he couldn't see. Soren cut the cord with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The nurses cleaned the baby and placed him on Kieran's chest. He was perfect. Tiny, warm, real. What are we naming him? Kieran whispered. Soren looked at the baby, then at Kieran. Elijah, Soren said. It means my God is Yahweh, a name for someone who survived when everyone said he wouldn't. Kieran smiled through his tears. Elijah Kadro. Elijah Kadro, Soren repeated. The baby opened his eyes. Dark, curious, already looking at the world like he was ready to fight it. Just like his parents. 3 months later, Vivienne's trial ended in a conviction. 20 years for conspiracy, 10 for attempted murder, sentences running consecutively. Brandt took a plea deal, 15 years, testimony against Vivienne in exchange for a reduced sentence. The company issued a public apology to Kieran, offered him his job back with a promotion. Kieran turned it down. He started his own consulting firm instead, one that specialized in helping Omegas navigate hostile corporate environments, one that didn't require him to sacrifice his dignity for a paycheck. It was small at first. Then it grew. Within a year, Kieran had clients in 12 states. Within 2, he had a waiting list. Soren watched him build it with pride so fierce it felt like worship. On Elijah's first birthday, they threw a party. Just close friends, family, people who'd stood by them when everything fell apart. Kieran stood in their living room, holding Elijah on his hip, laughing at something Amara said. Soren watched from across the room. And he realized something. This was the future Vivienne had tried to steal. Not power, not reputation, not control. This, a home filled with people who chose each other, a child who would grow up knowing he was wanted, a love that survived because they refused to let it die. Soren crossed the room and wrapped his arms around both of them. Kieran leaned into him. What was that for? Just reminding myself you're real, Soren said. Kieran smiled. We're real. Elijah grabbed a fistful of Soren's shirt and giggled. And in that moment, everything made sense. The pain, the fear, the mistakes, the choices. All of it led here. To a family built not on perfection, but on the stubborn refusal to give up. Years later, when Elijah was old enough to ask questions, Kieran would tell him the truth. About the people who tried to erase him before he was born. About the Alpha who chose love over power. About the Omega who chose trust over fear. And about the real reason Soren walked away 3 years ago. It wasn't because he didn't love Kieran. It was because someone convinced him that love made him weak. But love didn't make him weak. It made him brave enough to admit when he was wrong. And brave enough to fight for what mattered. That was the lesson. That was the truth Vivienne never understood. Power without love was just control. But love without power, that was revolution. Thank you for watching this story of love, betrayal, redemption, and the courage to choose what's right over what's easy. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words inspire us and help others who need to hear these stories. Remember, every story we share is an opportunity to reflect, grow, and support one another. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love is worth fighting for. We'll see you in the next story.